Continuing my story about me waiting for my mom to come back from El Salvador, I was living right there in Vermont and Gage area. And like it felt like a long time. Finally, my mom came back from El Salvador, and we continued living there for a while with that family where I was at. And everybody there kind of worked at a bar or some type of place like that. And also one of the lady's boyfriend, he used to be a band leader for a Mexican band. So we were always at Huntington Park, Maywood, all them areas playing music. So I used to go along with them here and there, and they used to leave me in the car, and after hours, they used to bring me in to use the restroom at the bar and help clean up. I used to get some, beers here and there when they weren't looking at me. And I used to hang out around with the other kids that were around, like the taqueros. There were a lot of taqueros out there. So I used to taco guys, the roach coaches. So I used to hang out with all the kids that were there in 2, 3 in the morning. So then finally, when my mom came back, we continued doing the same thing. She continued hanging out. She started hanging around with them and doing the same activity. So that's the way life was every weekend. And I continued attending school at Butler Elementary. But one of the things that was cool going to that school, now that I look back, was that we're near the Coliseum. So the Raiders were there during that time. So all the schools used to go, and they used to let us go see, they used to take us to go see the Raiders. And from that area. But the only problem was that it was like a gladiator school. So they used to, every time we went, we're fighting other kids from other schools. It was constant fights. So every time we went to the restroom, you couldn't go to the restroom. You had to go with a group of people. So I always tell that story to people that anytime growing up over there, we had to go to the store, restroom, anything. You had to you couldn't just get up and go to the store. You're like, okay, I'll be back. I'm gonna go to the store. You had to put yourself together. All right, you know what? I'm ready. Okay, I got my shoes. Who's out there? What's going on out there? You always had to be watching out for something. So finally, we moved to 76 in Vermont, and while we were living there, at some house, some little room. So when we were living there, my mom met, which is my brother and sister's dad, some guy named Jose. He was a guy in and out of jail. And then when we were living there, we somehow ended up living in a van right there on Figueroa and Florence. And somehow we ended up living in a garage, and there was a big shooting there. So we left. That was on Broadway and Gage. And we ended up going to somewhere in Butler in 59, then Normandy in 59, some house that the guy rented that had no electricity. He eventually had to borrow electricity from the neighbors. It was all chaotic in there. And that's the way, and I don't remember my brother and sister during that time, so I think they weren't around yet. So then we continued living like that everywhere. We moved everywhere. But before I end, real quick, that while I was a couple years ago, I was at a motorcycle event in San Diego, and there was a guy. He asked me where I was originally from. Somehow we started talking. I told him, I'm from South Central too. He's like, oh, I'm from that area. And then he's like, oh, I'm from South Central. Okay. So throughout the night, somebody else asked me something, and I told him that I lived there too, in West LA somewhere. And then the guy, he's like, hey man, I thought you were from South Central, man. What happened? Now you're saying you're from West LA. And I was like, okay, not a big deal. I wasn't gonna explain to this guy that we kept moving around. And finally, I didn't pay no mind to it, and I went about my business. So that's that I just kept moving around. So don't take that for granted, you know, or don't take it for granted. You having a family, having stability, and always take advantage of all that. So that's a gist of my message today with that story.